being hateful. There we go. We're on. Because once we add a guest on Instagram, we can't save that. So I love doing a guest on Instagram. It's the easiest platform to get Instagram. We're going to have a version that might be a little bit glitchy on Facebook, but we're here.
That's all that matters.
Yes.
It's the perfect time to party, right? It's Saturday
night.
We're all stuck in nothing like a dance party.
Right? So why don't you introduce yourself first? I always butcher pronunciations of names, so I'm just going to let you take that.
That's all right. So my name is Michal Ofer, and it's a tough one, I know. So I answer to almost anything. Nutrition consultant here in Calgary, Alberta, so
yes.
same vicinity as you, Dory. I specialize in keto and low carb eating. I work at a functional medicine clinic in the city, so we help people who are going through struggles or who are looking to optimize their health, really dial in their diets and everything from weight loss to autoimmune disease. I also run a lot of private Facebook groups, private group sessions on of one-on-one consulting, both here in Calgary and all over the world. I write blogs, you know about that. That's kind of how we connected, right?
Yes.
I write blogs and articles and those types of things. So a little bit of everything, but really focused on that low-carb keto sphere and optimize their health.
Yes. And I kind of came across you just by chance. We happen to be floating around in some of the local Keto Calgary groups, and I became a member of your group, and I love the information that you post. Now, my people know my passion isn't science. It's not that I don't appreciate the science of keto. I love it. But what I'm passionate about is not numbers. I'm passionate about food and fun. So what I love about your page is that it's really good information, but not in that looking down my nose upon you kind of way, like you often see in very science-based realms. And I think that to find that integration is so important. It's so valuable. So I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about how you bring fun into keto, because the science is great, the numbers are awesome, but at the end of the day, if you don't enjoy something, does it matter how logical it sounds?
Right, exactly, and that's the point. Some people are very numbers-based, and they like to see the numbers, and they like to work things. Minority. And even if it is you, it's not you all the time.
Yes.
Right? We need something that just kind of sort of fits into life. What I found is if we can make something just make sense to somebody, if they can learn to love something rather than just think what it is, rather than because it's the right thing to do,
yes,
it becomes a lot easier to embrace and to hold part of to become part of your. I like to try and explain the science to people so that they know why they're doing it and why it works.
Yes.
But in a way that how this fits into change your life, or how this could impact you, or how following keto and loving how keto makes you feel is better. You know, the pizza from the pizza place down the street, which doesn't always it might taste good, but it doesn't always make you feel so good. And understanding the whys, or really getting in touch with that, allows people to embrace it a lot easier, and it can make it fun. And then you add in people like you, where you make, where the food isn't inaccessible, where
yes,
being human is okay, where still wanting food that tastes delicious and enjoying it, yes, and having food orgasms or looking at food porn is still fine and encouraged, yes, right? Makes it accessible and makes us able to do it for the long term. Now, there are yes, times and there are instances where the numbers matter and the numbers count. And yes, if you're dealing with a huge issue, if you have a huge challenge, a health challenge, we might really need to dial in a little more. Yes. But part of the process and part of the journey is it's a little bit of work on the front end for a whole lot of good times on the back end. Yes. And what I like to do is let's get the work done. Let's get it over with. so that we can start to, number one, enjoy our lives, not being obsessed about food and what we're eating and, gee, how many carbs and calories and this and that is everything that I'm putting in my mouth. Like, holy moly, did I have a granule of carbohydrate that might kill me? Rather than obsessing about that, being able to relax and enjoy and understand, when you understand the whys, really, it's much easier to let it go and stop being fixated on the whats, if that makes sense.
That, honestly, that totally makes sense. And I feel like it's finding that moment where you move from I can't have to I don't want. Because when I first started keto, it was hard. I'm not going to pretend like it wasn't hard. My whole family didn't go keto. It was just me. So I still had to prepare non-keto foods. I still had to prepare non-keto snacks. I went to the store today when I got my emergencies and I bought cream eggs. I'm not going to eat them. I'm honestly not even tempted to eat them, and I haven't been tempted in years. But in the beginning, it was really hard. Everywhere I went was, you can't have. The grocery store was like flashing neon signs in my face. Everywhere I looked was things I couldn't have. But when I realized that those things actually made me feel sick and they didn't make me feel good, then it was easy to stop wanting them. So now if I walk by somebody at a restaurant and they're eating a big slice of chocolate cake, I don't look at their cake and think, oh my God, I want your cake. I hate you. How come you get cake and I can't have cake? I just think, man, when I get home, I'm going to make me a keto cake and I'm going to have cake. So I think for most people, if you let go of I can't have, and you just remember, girl, you don't even want those things. Is it going to make you feel good? Is it going to fuel your body? Are you going to feel awesome when you're done eating that pizza? Or are you going to feel sluggish? Are you going to feel gross? Is your stomach going to hurt? You might be bloated. It's about weighing that out.
100%. And one of the things that I like to tell people, it really is a journey. And I think a lot more for women than for men, I've found.
Yes.
It's a journey in learning to love yourself more than it is loving the chocolate cake or the pizza or that momentary indulgence. And that is hard.
Yes.
Like, that is not easy. We are not taught to love ourselves. We are not taught to prioritize ourselves in that way.
Yes.
Now, the thing with keto, and the amazing thing, and we were chatting about this a little earlier today, is eventually you do get to that point where, you know what, it's not, or you start to pick really smartly. It's not worth, that's not worth feeling, you know what, over.
Yes.
It's just not. But there's this journey from I can't to I don't want to. That is a lot. The majority of the work that I do is in between that, and we really begin. You know, our entire society is focused on lack. Right? You don't have this. You're not good enough here. You can't have this. You can't have that. So one of the things I think that you do with the food that you make, and what I do when I speak to my clients, is really start to focus on the cans. Yes. What can we do? Okay, you can't maybe have chocolate cake from the bakery down the street, but you can have bacon and eggs every morning for breakfast. What other program is giving you that?
Yes.
And really beginning to focus, and just use that as a very superficial example, but really learning to focus. And then there's also transition steps, and what got us talking this morning was me speaking about the transition steps, about choosing how to indulge or when to have those, and I use the air quotes, those off-limit type foods. Yes. How do we do it? How do we balance it? Right? What is a treat? How do you manage the word treat or the word cheat? I hate the word cheat, so I use the word treat.
That's what we bond over. It's my least favorite.
In your life, right?
Yes.
So, and that's part of that journey. And you came and you said, well, I don't even want it anymore. And you know you've made it. Like, literally, you haven't made it when you've got millions of dollars and cars and all of that. You've made it when you can look at the food that you know inherently, you know in your gut isn't serving you, and you can say, I don't want you because you do not serve me. Yes. You cannot taste as good as loving myself feels.
Well, and none of us got to where we were because we didn't have issues with eating. At my biggest, I was 290 pounds. I was in very poor health, and I really started to worry that I wouldn't see my son grow up. And honestly, the connection I have to foods, it's not even realistic anymore. I remember what I think that food used to taste like. But since my taste buds have changed, they don't taste like that. So 90% of the connection that we have with food, it's the emotion that's behind the food. What were we thinking when we ate that last? How did we feel? Were we feeling good? Was I feeling confident? This is my confident cake, and every time I eat this cake, I feel beautiful. It's the emotional connection that we make with those foods, and 90% of the time, it's not the actual food that you want, it's that feeling, that connection, that emotion that we get from food. We're addicted to that. I feel more like I'm addicted to the emotion of food than the actual physical food. I can avoid food all day, every day. We can fast, we can skip a meal, we can do whatever. But at the end of the day, it's that feeling that I still want. It's the emotion behind that I think is really the true battle, because anybody can switch what they eat, but to get to start to understand, why did I eat those things? Why did I hoard food? Why did I hide food? Why did I do things like buy a 6-pack of donuts and eat them all before I got home and throw away the box so no one would see the evidence, and then I could totally pretend like I didn't eat those. Like, nobody even saw me. And I think that was, of all the bad food habits I had, I think that was the worst, because I was never accountable, not to myself, not to anyone else. I could say, oh, well, I don't understand why I'm fat. I eat like a bird. But when nobody was looking, I was eating 3 chocolate bars and a family-sized bag of chips and a half a box of cereal. I don't know why I'm fat.
Yeah. Or why I feel like SH, you know what?
Yes. Why do I wake up? I will say that pre-keto, I used to sleep between 10 and 12 hours a day, and I would wake up and I would feel like I was exhausted. My alarm would go off and I would press snooze 1 or 2 or 3 times, don't judge me, and I would get out of bed at the very last second, because when I laid down at bed at night, I would stress. My brain would spin, it wouldn't shut off, I couldn't control my thoughts at night, so I was restless. But now, I lay down at night when I'm ready to go to bed, and I just sleep. I don't stress, I don't panic, and now I sleep, to be honest, I only sleep 6 hours a night, but I wake up and I feel refreshed, I feel excited, I'm ready for the day. I literally, my eyes pop open and I'm thinking about, what am I going to do today? Usually I'm thinking about TikTok.
That's something we still have to talk about. Because
we do. We're going to get you up on TikTok because it's so fun. I'm going to tell you all about it. We're going to get you going.
Okay, all right. I look forward to that, because I was explaining my technological challenges to you, which I like to blame on my age, but it's probably more just because of my ignorance. But I wanted to say something about the story that you told, because
yes,
it's really profound. And what we don't realize is, number one, our taste buds have been hijacked.
Yes.
They've 100% been hijacked. All the processed foods, all those delicious, yummy things that we crave so much nowadays are what we call hyperpalatable. So
yes,
they over-excite your taste buds. What happens is your taste buds are experiencing not just tastes, but textures. And note I say that in plural. It's not one taste. There's multiple tastes or multiple textures that we are not evolutionarily or just genetically programmed to handle. So it goes into overdrive. It's like, oh my God, too much. At the same time, it sets off a whole cascade of hormones and neurotransmitters in the brain, and it releases a feel-good hormone called dopamine. Yes. And dopamine is that feeling that, when you get a like on Facebook or you get extra followers on Instagram, right? You get all excited, and it keeps us going back and wanting more. And it's the same thing with these foods. That's the dopamine release. We seek it and we want it. So what has happened over periods of our lives is we have learned that instead of emotionally dealing with emotions, so instead of sitting and being sad, oh, you're sad, here, let's have an ice cream, it'll make you feel better. Or on the other side, oh, you're happy, let's have an ice cream and celebrate. So that's happening on the one hand, and then on the other hand, we have these hyper-palatable foods that make us want more and more and more and more. And we get stuck in this vicious cycle that's unbelievably difficult to break and unbelievably difficult to get out of. Unfortunately, the best and most effective way to do it is to go cold turkey, is to just eat, your basic, real keto foods, like right at the beginning, foods that nature provided. And what happens is slowly your taste buds and those senses start to calm down. They start to chill out a little bit, because the more excited they get, when you get all excited, then, just to get more excited, you need more and more and more and more and more. And this way they just start to chill, like literally chill, so that you'll taste something and the taste will be totally different. And again, you and I were talking about this earlier when you said you didn't even want like the real deal treats anymore. They didn't taste good to you because naturally, from a very natural perspective, they don't. But because they have to stimulate the taste buds and they have that whole hormonal cascade effect in the brain, we crave and want them and believe that they're desirable. That's how the body makes us get more. Well, it tastes good, get more. It's not going to say, I need a dopamine fix, Dory, so give me my chocolate cake. No, it's going to say, oh, it tastes freaking good, give me more. So, once we let the taste buds chill, we always find that people come back and say, it didn't taste as good as I remembered.
Yes.
Right? And I'll tell a funny story with my husband and pizza, and I need to tell the story because it's hilarious.
Oh, please do.
When he first went low carb, basically we went grain free. He was very, very mad at me. All he wanted was pizza. And he works out of town. All he wanted was pizza. He came home. All I want is pizza. Okay, well, if you really want pizza, get a pizza. He says, yes, I'm getting the biggest badass pizza that I can get. One of those big square, Chicago deep dish, thick crust pizzas. Pizza comes delivered to the house.
Yeah.
He takes a bite of the pizza. There's something wrong with this pizza. It's off, he tells me. So he phones the pizza place.
Your pizza's off.
There's something wrong with the pizza. So they deliver another one. They bring another one to the house. Second one comes, and he tastes it, and it's like, this tastes just as bad. This is rotten. He tells me, this is awful. This is terrible. It's the worst pizza I've ever tasted in my life. And I said, well, maybe it's not the pizza. And he looks at me and he puts his hands on his hips and he goes, you just ruined the pizza for me forever.
Forever,
right? Which is, now we have alternatives, and we've obviously, grown in our journey and discovered things since then. But that really is a testament to what happens. And eventually, that doesn't mean it's going to happen on day one.
No.
But it does mean that it happens. And this is where community or having support or being around like-minded people is great. You said you did this all by yourself. That is hard.
I did. And here's the thing. I saw one video about keto. It made sense to me. And I thought, you know what? That makes sense. I'm going to do that. That sounds like ancestrally what my people would have eaten. That makes sense to me. And I decided that day I was going to be keto. And I told my fiance and my son, and they said, that's great for you. Have fun with that. And I didn't know what keto was. I didn't understand the science of it. At that point, I didn't even know there was an online community. I just started Googling low carb stuff. I knew keto was low carb. So I looked up low carb vegetables. I looked up low carb options, and I started from there. I officially started keto in April. And when I was road tripping across Canada, so awesome, in the motorhome with my fiance, his 10-year-old daughter, and my special needs adult brother. It was a really good idea, by the way. Lots of fun. Nobody died. It was good. But I'm going cross country, and one of my girlfriends sees a post I made about a pickle sandwich. And she messages me and she says, oh my God, Dory, are you keto? And I said, I am. And she said this to me, which made me giggle because I always use this story with the two kinds of people there are. I had been keto, or what I would have considered keto then, for 4 months. And she said to me, oh my God, Dory, I'm not keto yet, but I've been researching it for 3 whole months. I'm going to add you to the Facebook groups I'm in. And I'm like, there's groups? There's research? People do this? And she was like, yeah, I'm gonna add you to my groups. And that's when I discovered there were Facebook groups for keto. I'll tell you the truth. I never knew enough about Facebook to know there were groups for anything. Like, I didn't know there were moms hanging out online doing groups. I knew this much about social media. So once every 6 months, I would look at my Facebook, if it needed me to or not, for the really important things. You know, what are the people from elementary school doing? Is my ex-boyfriend's new girlfriend better looking than me? These are all I used Facebook for until I fell in love with keto. And when I fell in love with keto, I started talking to people about it, and people in the Facebook groups I was in. And the very first thing I got excited about was nut flour. I had come across a recipe about how to make your own nut flour, and I got up in the group and I was like, oh my God, guys, you need to do this. We're gonna save a stinking fortune. You don't even know. This is so awesome. And I got this response. Oh, Dora, you're so funny. I mean, that's nice that you have time for that, but I don't have time to make my own nut flour. And I was like, dude, it takes 30 seconds. I'll send you the video. And I sent the video that I watched, but they didn't believe it. They were like, oh no. Maybe if somebody we knew made a video, then we would believe it. So I messaged the lady who ran the group and I said, can you make a video about this? And she said, oh, Dory, you're so funny. I don't want to make a video. Why don't you make a video about it and post it in my group? And I was like, okay. And my first video was awkward, no sound, and sideways. Yes! Nailed it! Nailed it! But after that, people started saying, oh, well, you need to have a YouTube channel because Facebook is so glitchy, Dory. You need a YouTube. Well, but I don't know how to have a YouTube. So I Googled how to start a YouTube channel, and I started one. And then my people wanted Pinterest. Oh, Dory, we need your recipes on Pinterest. Well, I don't understand Pinterest. Make one. So I did. And then I made Instagram, and I've made a Discord, and I've made TikTok. So pretty much all of those I had no knowledge of. Like, none, less than none. I only look savvy on the outside. I figure it out by doing it wrong 10 times. And then the next time you're like, how did I do that right again? I guess I'll just do all the 10 steps wrong until I get there. That's what I call smooth.
Well, clearly it's gotten you somewhere. Bumps and all, because your stuff is awesome. But what you've done during that journey is made things accessible.
Yes.
Which I think is the biggest problem with all of this, is that it's not.
It's
like,
not.
People seem to think of it as something that's hard. You see that all the time, everywhere. Keto is so hard. This is so hard. That's so hard. Again, coming from that place of lack, right?
Yes.
Can't have this. Can't do that. Really? Really? It's like making nut flour in 30 seconds. You can do it.
Yes. But I remember it, though. Like, I do remember being in that stage. I remember the beginning of planning a new lifestyle, deciding it wasn't going to be a diet, so I didn't have to bring forward any of my diet guilt. And by day 3, all of the excitement had gone. I hated my own face, and I started listing off all the things I'd never eat again. And it was bad. Like, I enlisted my fiance. It was a big fat pity party. Like, I literally took out a piece of paper and I wrote down all the things I'd never eat again, and then I mourned them. And the things that were on my list were stupid things. Like, top of my list was pie. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'll never have pie again. And then I thought, how often do you eat pie, Dory? Like, you know what, I'll maybe eat a slice at Christmas or at Thanksgiving. Maybe somebody will make a berry pie in the summer. I might eat pie 3 times a year. And I cried about it. And then a thought occurred to me, and I thought, well, maybe they have keto pie. Maybe they do. So I Googled it, and I was very afraid to do any baking because in my pre-keto life, I can cook like a demon. I can't bake to save my life. I can ruin a box cake. So I didn't really want to do any keto baking. I was really leery to do it. Ingredients are expensive. I'm really not a good baker. It's probably not going to turn out. So the first thing I decided I would make was pie. And I came across a pie shell crust recipe that called for almond flour. Right away, I decided I'd rather walnut. It's lower in carb. It's got better nutrients in it. And I decided I would make a half of a batch. So I took a half of a batch and I made myself a half batch. I made half of that savory, half of that sweet, and I made just little mini cups in my little mini muffin tin. And that was my first attempt at pie. But at my house, my family prefers a nut crust pie to a regular wheat crust pie. It tastes better. It's more filling. It's more enjoyable. But those things that I thought I wouldn't have, pie, pizza, cake, donuts, I eat all of those things now, but I eat a version of them that doesn't make me sick. It doesn't make me feel gross. It doesn't give me migraines. It doesn't pique my anxiety because I'm a depression and anxiety girl, and I never knew keto would help that. I, again, didn't know the science. I just thought, oh, that food sounds yummy! And all of a sudden, one day I woke up and I thought, when was the last day I was too depressed to get out of bed? I can't remember. And for me, that was my all day, every day, my whole life. I was diagnosed with severe depressive disorder in my early 20s. It's not treatable. They just tell you, hey, that's part of who you are. It's ingrained in your personality. You're just a sad people. And now to look at me, I don't think anybody would ever believe that I'm a sad people.
No, sad is not an adjective I would use to describe you at all, right? And it's interesting because this afternoon I was chatting with a really good friend of mine. She's on the feed right now. Hi, Miss Debbie. And we were talking about mental illness and diet and the impact of diet and lifestyle on mental illness. And one of the things, so just a little science nugget because I have to throw them all in. I can't resist, I'm a nerd. But one of the things that is really supportive of brain health and of how our neurons, how our brain cells talk to each other is saturated fat.
Yes.
And one of the premises, one of the things that keto teaches you isn't to eat loads and loads and gobs of fat. And we can get into that in other days, in other formats. But it really teaches you not to fear fat. And it teaches you the importance of fat as a fuel source, because fat is what makes the ketogenic diet work. Whether it's fat that you eat or fat on your belly or your bum, fat is what makes it work. But fat also runs our entire body. And for so long, especially like generationally, we've been on this low-fat diet. You are bad. You are depressed. You're just a sad people. Go away. Take this pill and deal with it. Life.
Yes.
That, coming like literally like opening the curtains, right? Lifting the veil. When all of a sudden the brain is allowed to function properly.
Yes.
It's amazing what it can do. And one of the things that you probably realize is the minute you start eating foods that don't support your brain, what happens?
Instantly.
You go down in the dumps, right?
Instant. Like if I eat something, and I'll say off plan, because again, I don't use the word cheat. You cheat on a loser ex-boyfriend. You don't cheat on a lifestyle, right? But when I eat something that's off plan, I can feel it immediately. I feel my anxiety rise, and I have to spend a lot more time reminding myself, this is not something that's actually going on, Dory. This is what you ate. This is not situational. This is what you ate. And it takes about 3 days, honestly, for that feeling to wear off, for that anxious feeling to wear off. And when it comes back, I remember with a vengeance how horrible it was to live every moment of every day like that, because there's no logical reason for it. There's no situation that brings about the panic. It's just a constant feeling of overwhelming dread, like something bad is just about to happen. Like when you're watching that horror movie and the music is starting to get really tense and you're like, something really bad is going to happen, but nothing bad ever happens. You just always live in that constant stress state where you're waiting for something bad to happen. And until I was free of it, I didn't understand what it was to be free of that. I lived that way my whole life.
And that is, I mean, that's, for me, that's a heartbreaking story. And it's a story that sadly I hear so often. And for some people, it's mental anguish.
Yes.
For many of us, actually, mental illness is one of the most pervasive illnesses in our society. For other people, it's physical anguish, absolute physical anguish. And we don't, in whatever way, it could be arthritis, it could be excessive gut pain, it could be, skin disruptions that don't allow you to go out, all things that, again, still add to the anxiety and add to the anguish. But what we've never been told or taught is how impactful the foods that you eat and those hyper-palatable, yummy tasting things that we use to squish our emotions and a million other things, the impact that those are having on you from the inside out. And it's interesting that you said 3 days, because it generally takes about 72 hours, which is 3 days, for food to be. So you see, you know the science even though you don't know it. You're one of those latent geniuses. You're an absolute smarty pants and you don't even know yet. Yes. But it takes about 72 hours for food to be totally digested and used up by the body. So often when we're doing, allergy or those types of testing or sensitivities, when we're actually doing it with reintroduction, we use 72 hours. So it's interesting that the carbohydrate has the same effect on you.
Well, and I find that, honestly, with the majority of my group members. I've been doing this for 3 years now. So I've had a lot of people over the years come to me and say, one of my ladies, she said, Dory, I just went out for dinner with my husband and I wanted to have a nice evening and I ate one piece of garlic toast and I feel awful. What can I do? And all I can say is, honey, it's going to take 2 or 3 days. Drink lots of water. I'm sorry this happened. Was it worth it? And she said, no, it didn't even taste good. And I said, then you know what? You've got to win, because until you get to that moment where you eat off plan and you realize that it's a physical thing, it's easy to lose your brain in that want and that crave. Once you know it makes you sick and you realize that's what's making you sick, it's so much easier to not want it. Now, for me, before keto, I didn't know that you weren't supposed to cry when you poop and hold a puke bucket. Everybody doesn't go like that. That's not normal. And back then, you could set a stopwatch by when I ate. If I ate within 20 minutes, I needed to go to the bathroom. Sometimes I had to stop eating dinner to go to the bathroom. And I would say to people, there's no way you can process any nutrient from your food in 20 minutes. There was something so very wrong with my body. And when I talk to sciencey people now, they explain it to me and they say, Dory, you either had an aversion or a low-grade allergy, and your body was trying to expel all of those foods. Why didn't you know it? Because you ate those foods every single day. That's what I ate every single day. So until I stopped eating those things, then I didn't know, oh, it's the bread, it's, the sugar, it's all of these heavy carb things that are making me sick like that. And you don't know until you know. So I'd love to talk a little bit about that, because pre-keto, I never looked at a label on a container, on a box. That's the whole other side from the directions, and there's no information there that mattered to me even this much. So I want to talk to you a little bit about when someone is coming to you from a standard Canadian, standard American diet. How do you kind of explain to them? I saved myself 1 can of tomato soup from back in the day so that I have a point of reference. Because when I look at this can of soup, in the 1 can, and a serving is only 1/4 of the can, by the way, just so you know, there's 22 grams of carbs and 13 grams of sugar in 1/4 of this can of soup. And there isn't a human being on the planet that doesn't consider 1 whole can an adult serving. Let's be honest. So each each time I made myself soup with crackers, with lots of crackers so the spoon stands up, just saying, I was eating a minimum of 88 carbs plus the carbs in the milk because I made it with the milk. So I was looking at probably 100 to 200 grams of carbs in one bowl of soup. But soup is healthy though. Soup's good for you. Soup is good food.
So, well, yeah, it's on the Canada Food Guide.
They have a label.
So for me, if we're starting right at the beginning, like from somebody who comes and knows nothing, the place that I always like to start is ingredients matter.
Yes.
And what actually is a whole food. I think we have a very, very distorted opinion about what is a refined food and what is a whole food. People think brown bread is unrefined.
Well, because it's not bleached and it's sorry, did you not know that whole wheat was more healthy? Everybody knows that. And especially if it's multigrain whole wheat, totally healthy.
Right. So we really start with ingredients matter. And again, coming from a place of, I don't want people to focus on can't, I want them to focus on can.
Yes.
So instead of saying you can't have blah, 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 let's say, okay, let's look at ingredients, and then we discuss what constitutes refined or processing. Processing is cooking.
Yes.
You do it yourself.
Yes.
That tends to be okay.
Yes.
But if you're looking at refined, refined tends to happen specifically to higher carbohydrate foods, and I don't tell people this, but it just tends to generally happen more to higher carbohydrate foods. And it's done to take out the nutrients and make them more shelf stable and make the carbohydrates more what we call bioavailable.
Yes.
Which means that they turn to sugar in your bloodstream even quicker. And it doesn't matter what you eat, right? It doesn't matter if it's a piece of bread or if it's a Snickers candy bar. It doesn't matter. It's what your body does with that. And so we begin to get into, I don't get into that. It can be very overwhelming and people get really freaked out. But we start to talk about what is a whole food.
Okay.
And so if you think about keto, number one, the wonderful thing about keto is it tends to take out most of the foods that are inflammatory to most of the people who have inflammation from food. That's grains, wheat, barley, rye, rice, corn, soy, right? Alcohol in the beginning, sugar, vegetable oils. We can talk about fats another time. Legumes, takes those out. Legumes can be very problematic to people. Then there's the dairy, which is that again, keto gray area. But we start to talk about, and keto naturally just takes those out, which is great. So it's a very low inflammatory, low allergen type diet.
Yes.
But it's also very much, when you're looking at it at its basics, it's a whole food diet.
Yes.
So in the beginning, we really want to focus on whole foods. So meats, vegetables, right? We discuss the vegetables that grow above the ground and the vegetables that grow below the ground. The ones that grow above the ground, we can eat with less processing, less cooking than the ones that grow below the ground. The ones that grow below the ground generally need cooking.
Yes.
So maybe we want to start to limit those and really focus on the ones above the ground. Those tend to be a little more nutrient dense. They tend to be a little more fiber dense. We really want to focus on our proteins. Specifically, if you eat them, on our animal proteins. And we go through why those are more nutrient dense. I really like to talk more about bioavailability and getting as much nutrition into your body as possible so that we can begin to heal whatever that might be. And being overweight, you want to heal from that too. It's not a natural state for the body. The body doesn't naturally hang on to fat for no reason. So even if it's weight loss, which might seem superficial, we start to focus there. So what happens is, as we're really making a plan to include more of these foods, we naturally crowd out a lot of the crap. So people go low carb by default.
Okay.
More than anything else, which is kind of cool, because I've been doing this since long before. I've been doing this for 10 years. So this is long before keto was called keto. This is long before people were doing low carb. So we were doing these kinds of plans without them having a name or a label. And I found that this gradual, really speaking about getting the whole foods in And then, and then we start to play around. Once you've done that for a little bit, we can play around with some foods, and we actually work on how does this food make you feel.
Yes.
So physically feel. I have a diary. We go through it. It's very specific. So people can get that connection that you have between the food and what it's doing to their bodies. And then we get into the social aspect of eating, which again is what we connected on a little bit today. Like,
yes.
How do you deal? How do you deal? And having the support, I find that your clients as well are so lucky to have you, something you didn't have, something I didn't have on my journey, with somebody to tell you, A, what you're going through is okay.
Yes.
B, no matter what you've done, there's a win there. There's always a win there. Like your client who ate the garlic bread, her win was knowing that it made her feel like crap and it's not worth it.
Yeah.
It's not worth it. We always have these, we make jokes about, are the calories worth it? Are the carbs worth it? Sometimes they might be. Most of the time they're probably not. But really getting into that, and everybody has their own balance, and depending on how much people can or are able to moderate as opposed to abstaining altogether.
Yes.
Some of us need to abstain. Some of us can't. We were talking about that too. Some of us are no good at moderating. You can't just have one piece of the keto brownie.
Yes.
It's all or nothing.
Yes.
So don't get or buy or make all the keto brownies, right? Have one. But that's later on. The very beginning is real food. And once we get that down, people are it's generally much easier.
Well, and I think people sometimes misinterpret me because they see that I make all the fun cakes and, the donuts and all the interesting things. But I'm going to say I never ate those things in the beginning either. Partly because I was leery to make them and I was sure they wouldn't turn out. But also partly just because of ease. When I first started keto, the only thing that really changed in my house was the vegetables. So normally for dinner time, I would make a meat of some sort, a carb, either potato or rice or a pasta, and one vegetable side dish. So when I went keto, I started making 2 vegetables every day. So then I would skip the carb and I would have 2 vegetables instead of the carb. And that was the only change I made for quite a few months, for the first few months. I never tried fathead pizza dough for, I was probably keto for well over a year and a half before I tried that. I didn't jump right in with mug cakes and cheesecakes and brownies and cookies. I started by just eating meat and vegetables every day because that's what I knew I could eat. Back then, I wasn't even smart-like and I wasn't adding fat. Because I tried to do a low-fat keto. I think a lot of people try to do that in the beginning because I thought, well, you know what, it makes sense, but maybe not the fat. I'm kind of scared of the fat. We're very trained to be afraid of the fat. And my fiance said, it sounds great for you, honey. It sounds healthy, but maybe not all that fat. I'm worried about your heart. And I did try to do a low-fat version of keto, and I'm going to save everybody the torture, and I'm going to say don't even do it. You're going to be starving all the time. You're going to be miserable all the time. You're not going to understand why you're hungry. It's going to be like old-style dieting. And every other diet I ever did was ultra-low-fat, high-carb, moderate protein. My doctor would say things like, fill up on rice, Dory. It expands in your stomach and it will make you feel more full. Eat popcorn with no butter and no salt because, again, it will expand in your stomach and it will make you feel full. So when I was dishing up my plate, half of my plate was a pasta or a rice or a potato, and then a little bit of vegetable and a little bit of meat. So realistically, why was I fat? I was living off of carbohydrates and sugar, and that's all I consumed. That's all I ate. That was it. That was my life. Vegetables didn't really exist in my life back then. I was a very meat and potatoes kind of gal.
Well, and we're brought up that way, right? And we're brought up to not eat meat. Like you literally, especially as women, right? If you think about it, how many times have you heard, or maybe done it yourself, because I know I have, you've gone to the restaurant and you really want the 10-ounce steak. So you look at the waitress and go, I'm really hungry, make an excuse for it, so I'm going to get the 10-ounce steak. And then you feel bad, so you don't eat all of it, but you're starving, so you eat your baked potato with no butter on or anything, because fat is terrible for you. And then you go home and you wonder why you're starving hungry and end up digging into the popcorn or into the bag of potato chips. Now, if you just ate protein as nature naturally gave it to you, and I'm not talking a skinless, boneless chicken breast, which does not occur naturally in nature, right? It tastes like you know what, right? If you eat like a nice, good piece of meat, it naturally has fat in it because protein and fat work together to give us the nutrients that we need, fill us up, and provide a way for the nutrients to get into your body. So this whole fear of fat has become this fear of protein because protein has a lot of fat in it too, right? And we find and it doesn't work. So if you're trying to do keto, low carb, low fat,
there's no fuel.
It defeats the purpose because it doesn't allow you the tools or doesn't give you the tools to deal with what you're dealing. Now, that's not to say, on the other hand, that the keto is all the fat you can eat all the time diet, because you want your body to begin to actually eat its own fat. Right? You want some of the fat you eat, some of the meals that you have to be from your bum, which has gotten a little bigger, right? Or from your belly, which you don't really want to carry anymore. But at the same time, you need some fat in the meal to trigger those satiety hormones and to trigger this hormonal cascade of feeling good and tasting yummy and actually having fun with your food, because who wants to eat dry chicken breast with steamed broccoli and plain rice for the rest of their lives? Not me. Bet not you. So, it makes it taste good, it makes you look forward to your food, so that keto can work. Right? It's definitely the balance. So it's not keto is not a low-fat diet. It doesn't have to be a super-duper high-fat diet, but you cannot fear the fat.
Well, and I always tell people, basically, the fat is a lever. So you want to eat enough fat to be satisfied. If you're satisfied, you're satisfied. You can eat a 10-ounce steak and be full, or you can eat an 8-ounce steak with 2 tablespoons of butter on it and be equally as full. You're going to feel that same amount of satiation as if you ate a 4-ounce steak, a baked potato, a salad, and a cake. You're going to feel that same amount of fullness. And I always caution my people about the feeling of fullness, because as overeaters, we all know that feeling of overeat. Like, you know the difference between I'm satisfied and I'm about to burst wide open. I'm just going to open my pants. Nobody judge me. And that used to be what I ate to. I ate until I felt that moment, until you feel lethargic, until you feel physical pain. Let's be honest. Like, as a fat girl, I ate until it hurt.
Well, I will tell you, just again, sciencey, but carbohydrates don't stimulate the hormones that tell you to stop eating. So if you're eating a lot of carbohydrates all the time, especially if you're starting a meal with carbohydrate, think the bread basket at a restaurant, lots of carbs in the meal, what's going on is there's nothing in your brain telling you to stop. I always talk about people at the movies with those big buckets of popcorn, and you're physically full, but you're still shoving popcorn in your mouth because until you are in physical pain, there is nothing telling you to stop. What happens is when you have that protein-fat combo, so think about going to the Brazilian barbecue. There's only so much meat you can eat, and yes, it might be a feeling of fullness, but it's also a feeling of, if I put more meat in my mouth, I'm going to be sick. And that happened long before the actual physical pain. Now, if you went after your meat and had dessert, because the carbohydrates don't stimulate anything and you could shove the dessert down, I mean, yes, there's things that can happen there, but there's a definite difference between that big bowl of popcorn and a big like a fattier piece of like meat as nature gave it to you, meat with fat together. And people don't. It's really difficult when you haven't experienced satiety, or when you've been on this carbohydrate roller coaster, the carb train, for so long, to understand that your body can naturally tell you to stop. Like, how many people will tell you, I can't eat one piece of chocolate, it has to be the whole chocolate bar?
Yes.
And a lot of it, there's a lot of layers to that, but a lot of it is because there's nothing about the chocolate, really, because it's much higher in sugar than anything else, that's telling you, that's telling your brain to tell your hand to stop putting it in your mouth.
Oh, see, and I love that. And honestly, for me, I I looked at food differently before. I could never enjoy a piece of cheesecake. I would go to the Cheesecake Cafe, I would have my meal, and I would get a piece to go. Because you never really enjoyed it unless you enjoyed it to excess. And I think that was my problem. I couldn't eat, a handful of potato chips. I needed to eat the whole family size bag. And now that food doesn't control me that way, it honestly goes hand in hand. I don't eat to excess like that because I don't feel hungry. I don't feel the desire to do it. I can make a batch of keto cookies and I can eat one cookie and I can walk away from them. I can eat 2 cookies and I can save the rest for a week if I feel like it. I don't find that food controls my every waking moment like it used to. I think for me, the best thing about keto is that freedom of worrying about food. The food I should eat, the food I shouldn't eat, the food I want, the food I'm abstaining from. All I ever thought about was food all day, every day. When am I going to eat? When am I going to eat next? What am I going to eat that's going to be good? What am I going to cheat with? And I just don't really focus all that much on food anymore. I mean, I love it. I like making it, but I don't find my every moment consumed with thinking about it anymore.
And that goes back to what we spoke about at the beginning with that dopamine response. Your body isn't constantly like panting looking for that dopamine response all day, every day. Right? So it totally naturally changes your relationship with food without you even realizing it, which is, again, these amazing benefits of keto that you don't expect, and you really can't conceptualize until you get them.
Yes. Until you wake up without a migraine in weeks when you're used to them. Until you wake up and it's the first time that you don't have irritable bowel syndrome. Until you wake up the first time and you realize, hey, I'm not super depressed. I'm not anxious about nothing. Nothing in my life has gotten easier. And I would say in lots of regards, my life has become more stressful than it was before keto, because now I do all of this. I'm out online. I'm talking to people. I do a lot of things I didn't used to. And my life isn't less stressful, but I deal with it better. I handle it better. Things feel like a bump in the road and not the end of the world. Whereas before, if something didn't go my way, well, that's it. That's the end of the world. Everything is over. Life is terrible. Nothing ever goes my way. And now everything just sort of feels like, oh, it's a bump in the road. And I have a new theory. If you run really fast at the bump, you can hit that sucker and you can just fly right over.
Oh, right, and literally take off.
Right? Yeah. Pick up speed.
You're right. And as you said, your life isn't less stressed.
No.
You have less stress.
I have less stress. I cope better. I manage better. I wake up and I feel like I have a better outlook. I feel like my life has gone from being a half empty cup girl to a cup almost full. The cup is, look at that, the cup's barely even empty. I don't even know where you're done. There's like one sip out of that.
Right, which is, again, it's the best part of all of this is what we get that isn't about the weight.
Yes.
That isn't about the weight. And for the most part, and I'm going to go back to my husband again, because when you ask him the benefits that he feels, he'll tell you a whole bunch of things. From how he doesn't have arthritis anymore, to how he sleeps better, to how his stomach feels better. He'll carry on and on and on for about 5 minutes, and then at the end he'll say, oh, and I lost 30 pounds. At the end.
Right? At the very, very end. Because at the end of the day, those are the things that matter the least. And I get that 90% of people come to keto because they want the weight loss. We all want the weight loss. That's why we come to it. But once you start eating keto, the benefits that you find behind that are going to be so much more important to you than a number on the scale. If I could take everybody's scale away from them, I would do that, because that girl she doesn't like you, she's not your friend, and she doesn't even always tell the truth. I have gone through many phases of keto where the scale said I weighed exactly the same, but I was still dropping pant sizes. Or I've been at a point where the scale was up 4 pounds, but I was down 2 pant sizes. Explain that to me. Does it matter? Does it matter that the scale says I weigh 164 instead of 160 if my body's still reshaping, if I'm still losing, if I, all of a sudden you see the collarbone that you didn't have before, and you start to see, in your face, these are the things that matter. Can you walk up a flight of stairs without feeling winded? Can you, shovel out your own front driveway? Can you play with your kids? Can you run in the field with your dog? All of these things are so much more important than how much the gravity pulls you to the earth.
Right, and the scale, I always tell people, the scale doesn't tell you how much muscle you have. It doesn't tell you how much bone you have.
No.
It tells you nothing. It only tells you exactly what you say, how much gravity is pulling on your feet. And a pound of muscle and a pound of fat both weigh a pound, people. Muscle does not weigh more than fat. You'll hear that. That's the stupidest thing ever. A pound of muscle and a pound of fat both weigh a pound. But a pound of muscle takes up about, well, depending on where, but it can take up to only a third of the space of a pound of fat. That's your 2 pant sizes right there.
Yep.
And no, you don't need to go to the gym to build muscle. Yes, you want to go to the gym to build bigger muscles. Yes, you might want to go to the gym to tone, but your body will naturally put energy into muscle if you give it the right fuel for muscles. Muscles are not made of carbohydrates. Muscles are made of protein.
Well, and at the end of the day, that's what really matters, is that we're all making striving towards a healthier lifestyle. Little things. It doesn't have to be everything. You don't have to do it all at one time. I slowly cycled off of carbs, and I mean slow. Like, when I first started, I was like, okay, well, instead of having my McDonald's McMuffin and a hash brown, I'm gonna skip the muffin, and I'm just gonna get them to make it inside my hash brown. And then later I stopped eating the hash browns altogether, and eventually I pretty much stopped eating McDonald's for the most part. But everything kind of matters when it matters. Just start eating meat and vegetables and cutting out the sugar, lowering your carbs, and see how you feel. Because I guarantee you're going to feel amazing, and you're going to come back and you're going to say, okay, so I did that. What's next? I like this. I like it.
How do I do it more? How do I supercharge? How do I, right? Take off, right? And
next level.
As simple as doing one thing. Eat meat and vegetables for dinner, even just for dinner.
Yes.
And see the difference that makes, right? Start reading the labels on the back of your food to see what's in it. Look at how much, not just how much sugar is in your food, but how much carbohydrate is in your food altogether.
Yes.
Because that carbohydrate all turns to sugar. You don't have to do all of those things even. You can just choose one, and it will begin to make a difference, 100%.
Even if you just cut sugar, if you say, you know what, I'm gonna stop eating sugar and I'm gonna lower my carbs. Even if you say I'm not gonna get rid of my carbs, but I'm only gonna eat carbs for 1 meal a day. I'm not gonna have carbs for 3 meals a day, and I'm not gonna eat sugar. Even just that. Even if you say, you know what, I'm gonna take your challenge, Dory, and I'm gonna do that for 7 days. At the end of 7 days, you will feel different. Your body will feel different. And from there, it's easy to get excited about eating better. When you start to feel better, you're like, oh my God, this is this how everybody feels? Everybody feels good like this?
Magic juice. It is the magic juice.
Yes. Oh no. So it looked like it ended and it cut us out, but that's okay. We're going to save it on Facebook. So we're going to stop.